Yeah, the workshop we are going to be having today is titled Introduction to Introduction to Photography Post-Production Workflow. So it might sound a bit confusing, but it's quite simple actually. Today, what we are going to do, what I'm going to show you is what do you do after you, for example, took some photos for a project that you're doing, or for like if you're doing this professionally, you went out and shot some photos for a client. And then after that, how do you deal with these images? Because most of the time, uh, you don't only shoot like 10, 20 pictures, but you have this high volume of pictures that you have to sort through and organize. So then today I'm going to show you, and you're going to see how to deal with these images and how to organize them, how to best effectively edit them, and so on. Okay. So Lightroom, this is when you first open it. This is how you look. You have the side panels and this bottom panel. Okay. So first thing you need to do, of course, is to import some images. Okay. So how I do that is I can click here. You can see import button in the library module. Now you see all the images in this folder appearing here on the import panel. Okay, and you see this check marks on each corner of every image. Okay, so you see all photos is checked, so all photos are selected and ready to be imported. So now we have the images. When I'm in Lightroom, first thing I want to do is make a selection. I have these images shot, but I want to make a first initial selection. So this is not the final selection, but I want to basically eliminate the images that I'm sure I won't be using. I just want to put the images I like, the images I want to keep and work further, 5 stars, right? So how you do it, that is, do you see this like stars here? You press to like all of them, and now you have 5 stars on the image. So you can see underneath the image that is start 5 stars. So really quickly, these are, for example, nicer. So I kind of want to keep some of these. This is interesting because there's some play with the shadow, there's some contrast. Also, by the way, you can see how I am working in a studio. You always you have different lights, and you like change the position of your lights and maybe add another light and change the colors so that you create different effects, and you see which ones work in the end in this process, basically. But also, I should say that if you're, for example, I chose these images to my taste, and I'm not obliged to have like certain images. So if you at some point start working as a photographer, and if you're shooting for a client, then they will also need some requirements, like they would want to have certain images. So you should consider that. So I gave images 5 stars, right? Now what I want to do is I want to isolate these 5-star images. So to do that, I have to create what's called in Lightroom Smart Collection, okay? So the Smart Collection, you have this panel on the left that shows the catalog. This is the basic, when we imported, we created this catalog, which has 215 pictures. And underneath you see collections, okay? So this is how we really get organized in the here. So to create a collection, in this case, a smart collection, you go here and you see this plus mark. So I click on that and say create smart collection. So this is a very smart aspect of Lightroom, that you can apply this logic. So remember, I gave 5 stars to certain images, right? So I want to just isolate those 5-star images. So I go to rating and say, if rating is 5 stars, put it in that collection, okay? So I created this initial selection, right? Now I have 55 images selected. Then what I would do at this point is I can start editing images, right? So I made so I was during this whole time, I was on library module, the modules that I showed you in the beginning. I have library, develop, and it goes on and on, right? So Now I can exit the library module, okay? Because I'm kind of done with the selection part. Develop module basically allows you to make initial edits on your image. So on this right panel, I have all my editing controls. The first thing you see on this editing panel, this right panel, is temperature and tints. So temperature is your basically tone, color adjustments, okay? It's the white balance. So what temperature changes is, well, the temperature of the color. So if I go to the left, it will make the image blue, bluish. And if I go to the right, it will make it very like warm colored, okay? The tint is like, it goes green from purple, so you have more color control. Now I have this presence settings. So what they do is they basically like sharpening to place, but they do different stuff. So when I go close, like zoom in, if I increase texture, you see it sharpens the image kind of. If I increase clarity, again, it sharpens it, but in a different way than texture. So these are things that you have to, again, start doing yourself and see what they really do. And this is something very important in my opinion, this panel, HSL color panel. So this allows you to individually control each channel, each color values channel, right? So for example, you see I have this blue dress, right? So I can change the hue of only the blue. So I go to the blue and I go like this. Now it turns to green. Also, do you see this like green area, the green light on the face? I want to accentuate it. So to do that, I take green and increase its saturation. You can see here how it changed, like that and that. So that now it's brighter, that green is more clear. What I can show you, apart from this like basic color and tone adjustments and all the rest of the stuff that you can go ahead and explore yourself, is these tools up there, up here. So basically you have, if you want to crop in, for example, to the image, you can click on this, similar to how it works in Photoshop. You can like crop into your image, okay? This is the crop tool, quite simple. And for example, if you want to have, say I find this top location too bright, I can go ahead with this gradient tool right here, okay? So it is the fourth thing on this top panel. And I go ahead and create a gradient. And I can adjust the settings for that gradient. For example, if I reduce exposure, it reduces the exposure in the shape of that gradient. Or if I change the color settings, it changes the colors in that gradient, okay? I double click, by the way, to reset. So for this image, I would maybe, I don't know, I think it's good as it is now. So I won't change anything, I won't be adding a gradient actually. Say I made the selection and I go ahead and edited all of the pictures here and I like how it's looking. So at that point, you need to go further with your editing, right? There are things Lightroom isn't capable of, like cleaning up all these individual things and hair and like things like this that sometimes take too long in Lightroom, or sometimes there are things that you cannot even do in Lightroom, okay? For that stuff, you have to send the files to Photoshop and continue editing there. So the good thing is, since both programs are created by Adobe, there's a very good connection between the two. So you can just send the image from here to Photoshop and just edit there and hit save, and then your image appears back here. So again, at this point, what I do is I go and transfer this to Photoshop, because at this point I cannot edit it anymore here. So I go ahead, right click, and I say edit in and edit in Photoshop. So Lightroom automatically transfers my files from here to Photoshop. Okay, now I have the same image as here in Photoshop. Now, I mean, I won't take too much time. I will just to show you, and I'm not trying to finish editing this picture right now. might become really boring in that case. So I just quickly show you what you can do. So you can take your healing brush. So this is the standard brush used to clean up spots. So if you go, for example, oops, go here. By the way, I created a new layer on top. So I'm not directly fixing, like applying these changes on here. So I'm on top and I go and I do this cleanups. I would say don't go too crazy with clean up the skin, okay? I mean, this stuff, okay, it makes sense to clean up like these little bumps, but don't go too crazy and you start losing the character of the model, okay? I mean, also, I would say don't ever clean up like this stuff, like nature, like birthmarks. And apart from that, at this point, like I don't see anything else that I want to clean up. So now this, maybe I can come closer. So this is after, this is before, after, before, very basic cleanup. So at this point, I would create another layer and I would start like giving some volume to the image, okay? To do that, I create a new layer and I go this under this, how is it called? Overlay styles, layer styles, I think. I say overlay, click on overlay, okay? Now, if I'm under overlay and if I select a white color and if I go to my brush, if I brush it in, it will make that spot whiter, okay? Brighter. If I go to and select black as my brush color, if I do like go in, it will make it much darker. So I take white and I want to brighten up the face because in like these kinds of portraits, you want, sometimes you want the cloth to be the focus, but because this is a makeup project, I kind of want to accentuate the face more because this is like, you have this huge shadow of this arm on the face and I want to brighten that spot. So I just go ahead, make this local while I select with white with my brush and I can make, yeah, that's fine. And I can go ahead and slowly brighten that spot a bit, okay? Maybe even the neck parts, okay? So since I want this face to pop, if I increase the blackness around the face, that will help me. So if I give some, put some darkness, like for example, to the arm here, like so, see? Like so. Now it helps with the face visibility. Like so, maybe too much. Okay. So it was like this, I did it like this. You can kind of see that the face now is more in focus, although not too crazy. Also, I want to like darken this to bright. Okay. So at this point, if I'm happy with the image, what I do is I merge everything. You don't have to do this, but since we have like different layers, and I'm sure that I'm done, I can just merge them so this file size is smaller. So when I hit save, it saves the image as the same location as where I imported my photos. So you see it's here, right? So it created a new TIFF file. And when I go back to Lightroom, you can see now my edited photo is here.